He's a liar. He's a cheat. He runs around on you. He's giving you an STD. My question is, why are we in court asking me to save your marriage? It's like me shooting you up with heroin and telling you, and don't get high.
Judge Lynn Toler, you are the longest serving judge on divorce court with 14 years on the bench, and you've seen it all. The lies, the cheating, the manipulation, and everything in between. So I thought it'd actually be fun for us to play a little game that I'm calling Men versus Women, Who's More Likely? I'm going to throw some real life scenarios at you, and based on everything that you've seen, tell me who's more likely to do it, men or women. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So, number one, who's more likely to cheat but justify it?
Everybody always justifies it, both sides. But, I wasn't getting enough attention. She wasn't saying I was wonderful enough. They all justify it. They all got a reason. It's just not a good one. So it is a tie.
All right. So the question is the justification different?
Oh, well, the justifications are always different. And first of all, the justifications usually aren't true because they're telling me something a little better than what really happened because they don't want to look silly. But women are worried about men. If they love another woman, the guys are wondering if they're having sex. So the worry is different. We would prefer a physical affair than an emotional affair because the first thing out of our mouth after we find out about it is, do you love her? Mm. And the first line out of his mouth, did you sleep with him?
Yeah, because I was thinking, I've seen multiple videos of yours. I mean, 14 years, you've had so many cases in front of you. And a lot of men that I have seen are always saying, well, she's not giving me enough sex. I don't often see women saying that's the reason. So when a guy is saying she's not giving me enough sex, do they really believe that's an accurate justification of why they cheat?
I don't think they think it's a justification. I just think it's an itch they needed to scratch. They're not saying I'm not getting enough sex, therefore I have the right to that. They're just out there and it's a drive. It's like if you're hungry and and there's no food in the house, and then someone comes in with a bowl of hummus and crackers, you're going to eat. So it's not, I have the right to do this, is my plate's been empty for a long time. Now I want something to eat.
Push back if this isn't accurate, but it seems like men, when they're starving for sex, they'll go out. When a woman is starving for attention, that's when they'll go out. Do you agree with that?
100%. 100%. I want you to hear me. I want you to feel me. I want you to love me. I want you to understand me. That's the intimacy I'm looking for. And, guys has that raw sexual hunger. Biology is biology. You know what I mean? They made them so they would procreate a lot. Now, we've got rules in the game now. And some of them are having a hard time obeying said rules. But we got to look at the rules that we used to have and figure out some new rules, because what was no longer is. Everything has changed. I remember on divorce court watching. I started over 14 years. First, it was MySpace. Every once in a while, a case would have something to do with that. And then over the years, by the end, there was no case that didn't have Facebook or Instagram or something as a part of the problem. So we have to address that, because the internet is like an emotional AK-47 for your romance.
Oh my God, I love how you put things. All right, I'm going to move on to the next one. So who's more likely to snoop through a partner's phone to find proof that they're cheating?
The ladies. The ladies, no doubt about it. That's what we do. We're thinking about it. We're worrying about it. And we are looking.
So do you often see women come into your call with like all this proof that they are doing it? And why do you think the proof matters to them?
That is so fascinating. That is so fascinating. I had this one case where this woman came in with, she could have convicted John Gotti. She had all the tapes. She had the pictures. She had the this. She had the that. She had the receipts. And she proved it. And so my next question to her is, okay, he's a liar. He's a cheat. He runs around on you. He's giving you an STD. My question is, why are we in court asking me to save your marriage? You know he's no good. We've proven that. What are you doing now? I just want to be proven right that I'm not crazy. And I said, but you're going to stay with him, aren't you? And she said, yes. And I said, well, you may have misproven that you're not crazy because you're staying with somebody you know and treating you right. And sometimes I think they're afraid to go because they think I can't get another one, because there are skewed numbers out there. And we do want relationships more than men do. And we don't have as long a shelf life. It ain't right. It ain't. But older men can get younger women, and it's more difficult that way. So I think sometimes we get invested in the relationship that we have to the extent that we're afraid what happens if he's not here at all. Mm-hmm. Because in addition to doing wrong, they also do other things. They're protective in the household. That you got somebody to run things off of. He's bringing in money. There are things that you're getting out of the relationship. So it's when you look at a woman and say, "Why don't you leave?" You're looking at all her pain. There's usually some pleasure thrown in that pain somewhere, or at least protection or security that keeps her there.
Yeah, it reminds me of the quote, "The better the devil you know." And it's like, at least you know.
You know this one. Guys in divorce court would often tell women, well, you're crazy. Oh, you're just crazy. You're crazy. You're crazy. I'm dismissing you because it doesn't make sense to me. Or, so that's part of the reason that they do it. They want to know that, I'm not a fool. I'm not an idiot. I did get it right.
And let's be honest, calling us crazy just makes us even more crazy.
Right. Indeed it does.
Which then they kind of get what they want out of it, because they're see?
Because the women get ramped up. Uh-huh. And then once you ramp her up, ooh, look at you over there crazy. And they always said to me, but Judge, you don't know what he did before I did that. So.
That's amazing. All right, let's move on to the next one. Who's more likely to forgive a cheater?
Women. No, hands down. Not
Right.
There's nothing to discuss. It's just us.
Yeah, I was going to say, you didn't even think about that one. All right, who's more likely to pretend everything is fine in the relationship while secretly plotting to leave?
I think us.
Ah.
I have talked to divorce attorneys, and if you talk to divorce attorneys, especially early on, and there are a set of divorce attorneys that typically represent men, and there are a set of divorce attorneys that typically represent women. And he said, you would be shocked by the number of men who come into my office and say, I never saw it coming.
Oh.
I never saw it coming. And 70% of the divorces are started by women. And what the women say in response is, I've been hollering, I'm unhappy this whole time. And he says, yeah, you've been hollering it for 20 years, so I didn't believe you. And she just finally got enough of it and left. But typically that's what you hear, that we think about it, we're not getting it, I gotta go.
Do you not see that with men then? When men are done in a relationship, do they usually just then leave? They don't have like a whole plan of leaving?
I think wealthier men do, because leaving is a whole different economic situation. They go to the lawyers earlier. They have more to defend. If you just have regular folk that with regular stuff, it's not like I gotta sneak and think and da. But with wealthier men, I think they do take more time as a business interest.
That's fascinating. All right. Who is more likely to lie in court?
Oh, everybody. I've been the judge since 1994. Somebody's always telling me. I remember one guy, he was in there for smoking a joint. And he said, yeah, it was mine. And I let him go because he's the only guy that ever comes into court and say, yeah, it was mine. They always say, yeah, I was holding it for a friend, but okay. And I said, you didn't lie to me. You can go.
That's amazing. All right, guys, we'll be right back with the amazing Judge Lynn. But for 1 second, if you want to build your confidence, build your self-worth, and set boundaries so that you can stand up for yourself once and for all, then smash that subscribe button down there so that you can get notified every single time an episode comes out. We're here to build our confidence together. So smash that subscribe button to get the notifications. Now, back to the episode. Who is more likely to try to win in court as revenge?
That's a really hard one. I mean, I think everybody's so angry by the time that they get there. I think both sides get vengeful. Some do because they have attorneys who kind of prime them for that vengefulness because, you got a deal and but that vase, I want that vase. And $5,000 in legal fees later, I got that $20 vase. So everybody's angry and everybody's upset, and we do it in different ways and for different reasons. But I can't claim one side or the other on that.
When you say different ways, is that different ways to the individual or different ways to gender?
I think women are more likely to get upset when the guy gets in a new relationship than the other way around, because the guys usually probably get into new relationships quicker. That's what I found on divorce court, and that's hurtful. He's treating her better than me, and then there's usually children involved, and then they become a pawn in the game of, well, I don't want her there when she's there. So, gender differences are distinct, but they're not necessarily as distinct as we would like them to be. Do you know what I mean?
Say more.
I mean, men are weird, women are odd. We've got these different, we got these different little, I talk too much. My husband didn't talk quite enough. I don't believe women are more emotional than men. I think we're all equally emotional. We just show our emotions in different ways. And, so my fears of somebody breaking in my house, my husband fears, men often fear hospitals. It's going and watch some guy to a hospital because it's a problem they can't punch. And so it's more fearful for them. Women are more, we're used to that kind of thing. We're head of medical at the house, so it's not as frightening for us. So we're different, but we're an awful lot alike.
That reminds me of, actually, have you heard, there was this study where they asked all these women and they said, if you were in the woods at night by yourself lost, would you be more fearful if you came across a man or a bear? And women unanimously said men. And men couldn't understand. They're like, you would rather come across a bear than a man? And so the men couldn't even comprehend that type of fear.
Right, yeah, the worst the bear can do is eat me.
Yeah.
The dude can keep me for 20 years in his basement. I mean, you know what I mean? I've even seen guys, though, that have said the question, well, what kind of man? And we said, you don't get to know. Because we never.
Yeah, exactly.
We never get to know. And I've been afraid in rooms with men before, so.
Yeah. All right. So this is unfortunately rather heartbreaking, but who's more likely to manipulate kids during the divorce proceedings?
I think it's easier for women to do it with kids because they tend to be more parentally responsible and closer. You know what I mean? So they have a greater opportunity to do it. I just hate dinging by gender. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hate dinging by gender because neither side wins unless the other side wins. It's a zero-sum thing.
Yeah, it was one of those ones where I was like, I wasn't actually sure if I should ask it because it's just heartbreaking to even think about it. So thank you for the honesty there. I really appreciate that. All right, and we got the last one. Who's more likely to come out of a divorce stronger?
For years and years, economically, men came out stronger. I think that's changing a little bit as women are becoming more equally. I think women come out stronger because they learned that they're a whole lot of things that they couldn't do and needed him for, they could do. So I think they come out stronger that way because they're more of an independent person. Also, we have a lot of, I lost my husband not too long ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, and they were always saying widows do better than the widowers because women tend to have a collection of women friends that we ache and cry to. Men don't have that so much. One, it's not, it's not a dudely thing, but I could call girlfriend after girlfriend after girlfriend and cry and cry and cry. And they say that's why widows usually typically do better because they have a larger community. So I might imagine, have no facts on it, so I don't know, but I might imagine that might also be true in a divorce, but I have not looked into it.
When you get divorced, you do have your friends. And now, like, they're doing things like divorce parties, which I actually kind of like because I'm like, yes, you should, if it's a good thing, you should celebrate it.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Judge Lynn. So I now want to talk about when you get married, the words that people use is, I can't live without them. They are the one. Then when you get divorced, sometimes you're like, I can't believe I stayed with that asshole. And so there's these two different things of when you first meet someone and then when you leave them. So I don't know if you heard Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban just announced their divorce. And I want to talk about how you go from being so in love with somebody to never wanting to see them again. And I got a quote from her that she actually gave in Vanity Fair in 2007. Since getting married, I've passed on things. I do not want to live my life away from the person I love. I just won't do it. So she goes from, I'm going to change my life, I'm going to do anything for the love of my life, which I totally understand, to now, 19 years later, there's a quote that she gives, how many times do you have to be taught that you think you know where your life is going and then it isn't going in that direction? So what I want to know is what's actually happening in between those two things, where you go from, I can't live without them, to I can't believe I stayed that long.
Once we get married, we spend all this time getting the wedding together. Once we get married, we think we're done. That's when the work starts. So very rarely do you feed the marriage in the beginning. And very rarely do you feed the marriage in a way that you're going to decide how you're going to deal with conflict. You just get married and think everything's going to be fine. And it's not. And you got to decide what you're going to do with conflict. You're going to decide what's your emotional relationship to money. My husband and I had different emotional relationships to money. So all those things chip away during that time. And so we're dashing around dealing with issues, but we're not feeding the marriage. I'm telling him what I don't like about this, but I'm also not sitting on his lap and hugging him. Hey, baby, how's your day? Because the issues become more important than the, hey, baby, how's your day? Then the kids come, and then the problems come, and then somebody gets a raise, somebody loses a job. Pressure, 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 everything. We forget to feed the marriage. We feed all the displeasure dogs, displeasure is an unhappy, yappy mutt. You didn't clean this up. You didn't bring this home. You didn't do this. You did 1,000 things that you didn't do. And joy, when you do everything you're supposed to do, you stop complimenting and thanking each other for it because that's his job now, or that's her job now. So joy is a content mutt, but it doesn't get fed. Just the yappy one gets fed. So that dog that's full of love and joy, he gets skinnier and skinnier. And other cat's getting bigger and bigger. And then one day you're going to have a problem. And the little joy dog, the love dog, ain't enough left of him to fight. People have tragedies in their life. I've known people not to be able to recover from losing a child or sickness or whatever, or this, that, or the other thing. But in regular marriages that just kind of creep apart, I always think they stop feeding the marriage at some point.
Yeah, when people say, I just blinked, it's never just a blink. And that's the point. And it becomes these chips, right? You just chip it away. And eventually, if you chip away enough at a tree, the tree's going to fall. And so I'm always trying to think through what are those little things that we miss.
Just feed the marriage. Figure out one thing he really loves, and when it's funky one day, you do that thing that he really loves. That's how you fight a marriage. for a marriage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that so much. So I actually have a clip from one of your days in court. In fact, I'm just going to play it, and then we can talk about it.
Have you been stepping out on her? Let me ask you that.
I had to. I got needs.
What needs was she not meeting?
Sexual needs, food needs. I like food, sex, and silence.
You like what?
Food, sex, and silence.
And you weren't getting any of it.
How do you go from, I have needs, baby, let's meet each other's needs, to now this guy's being so dismissive of his wife and saying, well, if she doesn't fulfill my needs, then she's gone. Like, I'm going to be honest, if my husband turned around and said, I've got needs, food, sex, and silence, you're out the door.
He was kind of trying to be funny for the show. So I'm gonna give him a little room on that one. He was trying to be a little funny.
I took him totally seriously.
Now, he was trying to be a little funny for the show. But it's a matter of we wanting different things and feeling like we're losing if we're not getting exactly what we want. She's not getting exactly what she wants. He's probably not saying, I love you, man. I used to tell guys like that. I said, if you want more sex, you have to engage in all day foreplay. What you do in the morning, you call her up, say, hey, baby, I love you. And then a couple hours later, you text her, hey, you sexy thing. Then you come home and you just kind of lick her on the neck. And then you say, let me get them dishes. You're going to get some. So it's a matter of he's looking at as a duty. You got to warm up the car. You know, because men don't, you know, car will turn over 20 degrees below zero. They can just go for it. We need to be warmed up. And if you realize it's not that much work to warm us up, you wouldn't be out there talking about all I need is peace, sex, and silence or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm. You've had a lot of men take the stand and talk about the fact that they do like to just sleep around. Have you seen anything in common with men who have admitted they're serial cheaters?
There's a set that an old school. I make the money, I make the rules. I had a guy actually say that. And he said, I make the money, I make the rules. It's too bad. That's so sad. Another one is, I know she won't go. So why not? There are others that are in communities where the male-female ratio is all off and they are getting, you know, offer after offer after offer. There are guys who just are no impulse control. And there are other guys whose sexual drives are just extraordinary. A lot of reasons that happens.
Coming up.
My anger is delivered. I choose the level. I choose the logic, I choose the direction, I choose the volume, and then I go.
All right, my homie, can we just agree that eating clean when you're super busy is freaking impossible? You're running from meeting to meeting, maybe shuttling all the kids, maybe juggling 47 things all at once. And what are your snack options? You've got the rubbish gas station jerky that's full of crap that you can't even pronounce. You want to make good choices, but life doesn't exactly make it that easy. And that's why I'm obsessed with Paleo Valley's 100% grass-fed beef sticks right here. They're super clean, packed with protein, and they're fermented. So they're actually good for your gut too. There's no junk, no sketchy ingredients, and no regrets. I just throw these everywhere I go, including my purse, because my husband always steals them, my backpack, my desk, in my office, everywhere I go, because when hunger hits, I'm not about to settle, and neither should you. So go and grab 30 of these beef sticks for just $36 right now. Click the link below in the show notes to stock up. Trust me, your body and your busy life will thank you. So you fall in love with someone, hopefully it's who they are, the way they look, the way they are, knowing that if we're going to be together for the rest of our lives, you're going to change, you're going to evolve. So I'd love to play this clip about how on earth someone can go from loving their wife, loving their partner, to then being so cruel and loathing who they have become.
I feel like her personal hygiene has fell off a little, but it's still pretty bad. And I feel like she does not comb her hair like she should. She don't take care.
Comb her hair like she should.
She don't take personal hygiene the correct
So
way.
she doesn't pretty up herself
Yeah,
enough.
like
she
she
doesn't
used to.
clean enough.
Yeah.
When she gets off that job and she comes bringing that 7-month-old belly in there, and she doesn't just get her hair combed and look good for you while you sitting there with your unemployed self. This is your problem. And I remember him, and I'm still mad at him. She was working. She was pregnant. He expected her to cook and to clean and be beautiful and have sex. And he wasn't even working.
Yeah, it was so funny. So as I'm watching that, I don't even realize the outcome. And then you're like, and you're unemployed. And I was like, oh God, I missed that part. So how did they get to the point where he can be so disrespectful and she's still wanting to continue that relationship when he's just being cruel and dismissive and disrespectful to her?
She's pregnant. Who wants to be pregnant and alone? She loves him. He probably does nice things for her sometimes. And, you know, when you are in divorce court, you're seeing a whole bunch of issues compacted into 17 minutes when you take out all of the commercials. But there are a lot of people who have men who have very old-fashioned ideas, and that woman's work is woman's work. And whether you're working outside or not does not change the fact that woman's work is woman's work. And they feel a way about picking up a mop. They feel less than. And men don't like, with their ego, and if he's not working, she's working, now I'm picking up a mop, it makes his ego go. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm not the man of the house anymore. So now I'm gonna butch up a little bit and say this and this because I feel like I'm not contributing. That's one very possible reason why, or maybe he's just a jerk. I don't know.
But what's interesting is I actually really like your compassion there and the thinking of that it's almost out of insecurity. And so the kind of pushing of your things that you're doing wrong and just focusing on the other person probably makes him feel better. I actually didn't see that at all. But now that you mention it, that makes complete sense.
Right. I had one time I had a guy up there. I don't know what he had done. She had done something small. She shouldn't have done it. It was really silly. And so she did that. That was disrespectful. So I just slept with her best friend. And I took a piece of paper and I said, she did this wrong. You did this wrong. You were looking for a reason to get out. Let's say, so you can't look for a reason because you'll always find a reason. There's always something wrong with somebody. So there's some people who just like, well, you did that. I'm a free man.
Yeah, oh my God. Okay, so in talking about actually disrespect, I've heard you in an interview talk about like how on earth you stay calm. And I wrote down your 3 points that I'd actually love to go over because what I love about you and your show is you know exactly when to stay calm, to keep cool, and you know when to give it. And so I'd love to kind of go through a couple of those things. So you say when staying calm is separate how you feel from what you hear. How on earth do you do that?
I had a mother who was an emotional genius. And she always says you have to have a second set of eyes. And that second set of eyes is watching you and that other person. And that second set of eyes is total intellect. And you have to divorce yourself from how those words are making you feel to understand, A, what they're asking for, B, how you can give them something that they need, and C, how you can convince them to do something else. So if you take your emotions out of it, you can understand their emotions. And if you understand their emotions, they may not really want to tear down all of this, but they may be so upset, and this is what they landed on. So if you understand somebody else's emotional needs, you can figure out what and why they're doing what they're doing and maybe come to some kind of compromise. But you can't do that if you're all filled with angst and anger about how they're making you feel. You have to be the scientist, the objective one.
That's so powerful. Okay, so number 2 on how you stay calm is you say give voice to the emotion.
Give voice to the emotion. In other words, we were at the DMV one time. Now, Mama said, say out loud, this problem is not her fault. You know how the DMV is so And I get agitated and irritated. And she knows that DMV, and she said, say out loud, this problem is not her fault. She gets yelled at all day about a system that doesn't work, and she's not getting paid well to do it. You don't get to get mad at her. It's like that. You give it voice. You hear yourself. You just give it voice.
Okay, and then you have number 3, which is walk away. Because a quote of yours, my peace has a high price tag. Explain that.
Small things don't have the right to raise my blood pressure. I only got a certain number of years left, and I got to watch my cholesterol, my blood pressure. I don't want to have a stroke. If it's not critically important, I am not going to engage in any falderall with you. I will smile. I will let you cut me in line. I do not care. Little things do not upset me. I just don't let them. I just don't let them, because I take it in terms of he wants me upset. He wants my peace, and he wants my blood pressure to go up. And what I'm going to give him in return is a whole bucket full of frustration, because he can't upset me. And people, when they're going like this and you doing like that, you don't want the argument. I'm sorry you feel that way.
So how do you know then? Because I love that, but there are moments where in court I've seen like someone has said something and it's just, I don't want to say triggered you, but it's got you extremely angry. Is that the moment where you're like, okay, this is no longer a small thing and this is something that I need to stand up for? Because there was one video, I actually don't have it handy, but there was one video where a woman had said, I left once he started to put his hands around my throat and physically, threaten me. And the guy says, well, no, that's not all. And you just lost it. And you're like, it doesn't take anything more than that. So talk to me about that moment where it doesn't bother me, I can stay calm, even during disrespect, to then, no, this is a moment where actually as a woman, you do need to clap back. You do need to stand up for yourself.
I wasn't angry. I was displaying anger. There's a difference.
Say more.
I had, if it's a guy and he's being kind of a jerk about something, I need you to understand exactly what you're not supposed to do. Don't get over there and call yourself a man, blah, blah. Now, I had another guy in there, and he was very sinister, and he was doing the same kind of thing. I was nice to him the whole time because I was afraid he was going to hurt her. He didn't want the producers to put makeup on her, and he showed out. And so I realized he's this kind of guy that if I humiliate him on TV, she's got a problem. And we always have therapists there afterwards. So I was very nice to him. I was talking about, oh, you want to be better? You wanted to talk, well, let's talk about this, or let's, hey, why don't we? Because I was worried about her. My anger is delivered. I choose the level. I choose the logic, I choose the direction, I choose the volume, and then I go.
And what exactly are you doing in those moments? Like, I'd love to kind of pick your brain a little, because you're so delicately, beautifully, the way that you handle it. It's like you're doing a dance, and I want to learn the moves.
And here's the problem. The dance, the man has to lead, the litigant leads the dance. I don't know what to say. I can say the same thing to 19 different people, never use the same words. I got to figure out who you are, what you're interested in, what's your trigger points. And then when I figure out then I know how to talk to you. Oh, I get you. Oh yeah, I said you enjoy that. I said you good looking and you're comfortable and you're this and you're that and your wife's taking care of you. I suggest you get a little less comfortable. And I told her, I suggest you make him that way. I mean, he was nice, he was cute, and he was, and I was just telling him how great your life is. It's so comfortable. And said, while she's working, I suggest you get a little less comfortable, because he was all puffed up. And then
what happened when you popped?
Oh, he drooped, and she just smiled. And I said, I think you should make him less comfortable.
So you even said you do the almost like an assessment. You didn't use that word, but you're finding out what the triggers are. How do you navigate and see what those triggers like? How do you, like, I assume it's kind of like the bumpers, right? Where you're like, oh, how far can I go? What's going to trigger them?
I don't worry too much about what I say. At the very beginning, I spend most of my time really listening, really, really, really listening and asking questions and figuring it out. Because I can't zing you. Like I can't get to you. And like, wow, she's right. Unless I really know what you're about. And I can't know what you're about. I'm always thinking about what I think or what I'm about. I got to listen to you.
What are you listening for?
Listening for unexpressed anger. I'm listening for patterns. I'm listening for the types of words that they use when they talk about women in general. I'm listening for their relationships. I like that. Sometimes what kind of community did you grow up in? Did you grow up in a disassembled community where not a lot of married people? You can learn a lot about the words people use. I do have background information on them, but usually what I end up doing is different because I see, oh, here's the problem. I wrote a book called Making Marriage Work. And when things are going off the road and what to do, if there are parts of small things that he could stop doing that would make you feel better and you can get that concession just so you can feel just a little bit better. And then walk out of the house just a little bit more. Make something that makes you feel good about yourself because you're losing a bit of your self-esteem when you're shrinking for a guy, when you're being whittled away by a guy. And then you have to change your behavior. And we can talk about that when you go. But you yelling, and I'm out of the room. You did. I heard you. You're still yelling. I can't hear you. You know, and then you see what works and what doesn't work. My father, I learned this by my mother. My father was bipolar, the most brilliant, wonderful man in the world. He loved his family terribly. He was just a little crazy. And my mother kept saying, I try everything that makes sense to me. And then I start trying things that don't make sense to me till I get him to do what I need him to do. I don't tell him what to do. I figure out how to get him to do it. There's a difference.
I love that. Something that you just said about how we start to lose ourselves. I think that's very common with women, that we start to lose our confidence. We start to mold ourselves into what we think our partner wants. And there was a story I heard you actually tell. I believe it was maybe 7 years into your marriage, and you were married for over 34 years?
Yeah.
So I heard around in the 7-year mark that you actually say that you were just trying to make your husband happy. And on your birthday, you picked a restaurant that you actually thought that he would like. So talk to me about, I mean, looking at you now as such a strong, confident woman, I think it's hard for women to believe that you would try to just, I don't want to say placate, but basically serve your husband way before you're ever even thinking of serving yourself, especially on your birthday. So talk to me about how we start to lose ourselves, what that looks like, and then how you actually built yourself back with your confidence to be able to then have such a beautiful relationship with your husband.
What happened was, and I think this is something that neither one of us anticipated, I was a lawyer, he was an accountant. Then I became a judge. And then I got on TV. He left his accounting business completely. He had a few clients still left. He moved across the country. He's sitting in this house. I'm off in Hollywood or doing this, that, and the other thing. And I think he was losing his sense of, he would get very angry when he didn't get what he wanted because here he's done all this. He has nothing, you know, and I'm this woman on TV, everything. And he's a little insecure now. So I was trying to make him feel better about who by saying, yes, baby, yes, baby, yes, baby, yes, baby. And the funny thing was, the more I said yes, the madder he got because he married a strong, confident woman. And so he was getting madder at me because it was like I pulled him all the way out here and I forgot how to think. And so I called my mother and she said, this is what you do. And then she took us some months, 18 months, and we walked out of it. This is what you do.
What were some of the key highlights?
Well, that thing, never get angry. Don't yell. Do what you say you're going to do. Go out, do more things that don't involve him. Be very nice when he's nice. Be distant when he's distant. You know, I'm not doing that anymore, babe. I'm not. And bit by bit, he had to change. He said, Mom told me, think of yourself not as a combatant, but as a teacher. You have to teach him to feel better about himself and teach him how to treat you so that that's not the way he feels better about himself.
I'm going to predict in the comments, people are going to start to write, why is it your job to make him feel better about himself?
Because I'm his wife and he wasn't feeling good. I love that man. I could have married a whole lot of different people. He made himself uncomfortable for me. He left his practice. He left his city. He shut down his office for me. He was my campaign manager. Why would I not make him feel better? He made me better. I never would have been on TV without him. I love him. It was us against the problem. The problem was we had gotten disparate. That's, you know what I mean? And when I'm afraid, he has to sit down, stop everything he's doing, and make me feel better because I'm a nervous person. That's his job. And my job is to make him feel better. He's my love. He's my king. He's my man. If I'm not willing to do something to make somebody feel better for him, what kind of human being does that make me? He died for me. We're not in opposition. We both win or we both lose, period. End of story. And if he has to, when he used to take me, he used to have to walk me around the block before I got on an airplane. And then he would hold my head before I got on the plane and say, he wouldn't say, be safe. He'd say, have fun, because I'm nervous and I don't know how to have fun. It's his job to make me feel better. And it's my job to make him feel better. And I'm very passionate about that.
Oh my God, that hit me so well. I love that so much.
It's us against whatever the problem is. It's us against the fact that one of us just lost our job. It's us against the fact that it's us. And then there's the problem.
Yeah. All right. I'd love to now move on to why a lot of us we don't leave and we end up staying in these relationships. And I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times, where it's like, I knew the relationship was over 2 years ago or 3 years ago, but you end up staying. And so I actually have a survey by Pew Research Center found that 55% of Americans say that unhappy couples tend to stay in bad marriages too long. And women are more likely than men to stay too long by 58% versus 52%. So, what are the real reasons that we don't leave, that we feel like sometimes that we're trapped? And are those reasons that we stay or feel trapped, do you think it's the same for men and women?
I think change is just extraordinarily hard. And when you divorce or leave, you are unraveling each and every part of your life. How much money you have, what your clothes, where you live, where your children are going to be. Is there going to be child support? Am I going to get along? Am I going to find a place to say? So you've got some kind of stability right there. So you stay and you think maybe, I could just fix it a little bit. And I always say stay or go is such a limiting question. What if there's a third option? You stay and make it better. Most people get sick of each other. There's a way to fight for a marriage. You figure out, list what's wrong. You go to the marriage counselor early, not late. And you say, what things if I could get him to stop doing A, B, and C, this marriage is livable. Then I'll trade you this sin for that sin. Okay. And now you got to put something on it. You got to put some interest on it because I made a deposit in the love bank. Now you got to do that. There are ways to do that, but we don't fight like that. We'll fight for views. But now if somebody acting a fool, whooping you and you're scared to even emotional abuse, some of that ain't fixable. And you do have to go. But I would see a therapist before you go, because you have to be safe when you go. And that's when lethality goes up in extreme relationships, because that's the list they give you when you're a judge, is you got to ask these questions, because it can be dangerous when you leave if you do not do it safely.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, when they're really, about 2,000 women a year don't make it.
I just went to a charity event actually, and it was for women who have the spousal abuse, and they have safe houses and they have motels, and they raise money to put these women and their kids into apartments. And so really hearing the reality of why women don't leave in those scenarios is like, yes, because if their life is at risk, of course you would rather stay, especially if you've got kids, So
And they tell you can't get anybody else. And they tell you, you aren't nothing. Abuse usually doesn't start with a smack. It's usually, you ain't nothing. You ain't nothing. And then you kind of start to believe it. Look at that dumb thing you did. You did 100 wonderful things, but look at that dumb thing you did over there. I don't say this. And the steam is gone. And I don't want to frighten people, but if you are in an abusive relationship, you really need to get into a local domestic violence system so they can help you. And don't do it from your own computer, because they can read the history. I do a lot of work in that area. So it's just, it's a thing of mine. So.
Yeah, no, please. I mean, that's definitely something that I am a massive advocate for. So we'll put like a bunch of links in the show notes as well for people if anyone's listening and needs help. And so kind of going back to, instead of leaving or staying, why not try to make it work? And so like the repairing, if you will. I think a lot of people stay in the hope that something's just going to get better, that if they change, then it'll just get better. And so you kind of stay in purgatory for years and years and years. And so part of, I think, the trap that we have is we think they're just going through a bad time.
And sooner or later, they'll turn back into the guy that I fell in love with. They'll turn back to the girl that I fell in love with. But something went wrong, and you have to address what went wrong. Both parties probably think it's something other than what it is. You know what I mean? Yeah, to think it's one thing and to think it's another thing. If your business is not doing too well, do you just walk out the door? No, you get in, you get a consultant in, you get an accountant maybe. I don't know. But in non-abusive relationships, that's just an option. It's a third option that you can try, but it just won't happen on its own. You have to identify the problems and be willing to work on them together. And everybody has to win in order for anybody to win.
God, that's so true. Well, you kind of said the accountant. So I actually have another stat here. So the New York Post says they did a survey published in May 2025 and found that 24% of Americans said that they are in a relationship they'd leave if they could actually afford to do so. That's 24%. That's insane. That's like a quarter.
That's a lot. And it's true. I mean, and some people, are struggling to get by as a couple, and they just can't afford not to be a couple. In that circumstance, though, again, you go into process and procedure to make a few changes that allow you to live better. Whatever it is, if we could just not, or just let's figure this out. Don't be mad, be thoughtful.
You actually said earlier as well that a lot of the times we don't leave is because we fear being alone, and we fear or not finding anybody or you end up like, what if I find worse than this person? So do you see that in court much, or have you seen that where people are just like, I just don't want to be alone?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of it. They say it's tough out there. It's tough to get a guy. And, you get one halfway cool, I'm going to keep him. I'm going to keep him, and I don't want to be alone. And that happens, Yeah.
Do you ever see it work out?
I don't follow through with them. So I don't really know. I lied to you. One couple really worked out. Buchanan. He was woo, all this. And I said, I know who you are. I said, you just like my daddy. And I like you for the same reason I like my daddy. I said, you wild pal over here, you jumping and you don't mean no harm, no. But if you can't find the connection, and now let me tell you what you're doing to your kids. They're living in chaos. And I just staying here for 20 minutes. I've been telling you what this one's been telling you 3 years. I've known 20 minutes. I know what I'm talking about. 2 years later, they came back. His hair was longer and he had gotten into therapy and he'd gotten a lot of help. She said, it ain't perfect, but it is way better. It is way better. And I do get a lot of pop-ups, which are women who I'll run into in the grocery store or somewhere. And the last one was a couple of weeks ago. I was just in the aisle, actually knocking over a display. And as I was knocking over the display, I look up and she says, "Are you Judge Toler?" And I said, "Yes." And she touched me. She said, "You don't understand. I was. And then she just burst into tears. She held me and she said, "Thank you." Something happened. She got out. Somebody listened. I had it happen to me in Brooklyn. This woman, she said, "I remember you said on the show one day, he keeps getting you pregnant every time you look like you're getting ready to leave. And then he's nice to you while you're pregnant." And she goes, "I realized that's what he was doing. And I got out of an abusive relationship." He said, "That's all I needed to hear, but I didn't have anybody to tell me." And those things make my life, it was a goofy job to have, divorce court. My mother was embarrassed. She couldn't believe I did it. But I honestly believe that, it was voyeuristic. It was funny, but I honestly believed I did good work because I was really honest about what I knew and really wanted to help people. And when people come up to me and cry about something I said, I feel like, I made a good decision to do that.
It taught people what a healthy relationship can look like and what a toxic dynamic also can look like. And sometimes you don't know, because if you've been brought up like that, Judge Lynn, it's like if you've been brought up that shouting at your partner and being disrespectful is how it is, you don't realize what you're doing.
Yeah. I would always talk about people were raised in high volume households. I remember this group, and she was just horrified, and she was raised in a high volume household. Everything was upper level. So she was screaming at him all the time, and he couldn't figure out why. And she didn't know why she was screaming. And we figured out she came from a high volume household, and she's going to have to work on that. And that made her feel like, well, I'm not wrong. I didn't have the right information.
It's so true. So my husband is American and I'm Greek from Britain. So when he comes to meet my family for the first time, he's like a white boy from Tacoma. So I'm like, you're going to meet my family. They're Greek, they're loud, but they'll love you. So he comes in. 2 hours later, we leave my dad's house and I'm all excited, right? And I'm looking at him and I'm like, what do you think of my family? And he turns around and he's like, they are so disrespectful. And I was flabbergasted. I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, they yell, they talk over themselves. I'm like, oh no, that just means that they like you and they're comfortable around you. But coming from a different world, he had seen that if you shout, if you speak over someone, it's a sign of disrespect. I was brought up that means that you're very comfortable and you can just be yourself and you want your opinion heard in your family. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'd actually like to move on now to something that I actually saw in divorce court, where you had a couple and they came to you to decide whether they should get married or not. And so you actually had them do a compatibility test. So talk to me about that compatibility test and what are you looking out for?
Well, first I would give them a little compatibility test that told me that would just say my ideas and what there was in, what they wanted and what they didn't want. And then I would talk about the problems that they have. And then I would ask them to give me their best job love letter to each other. And then I would tell them what I think your problems are going to be. And I'll give them the marriage certificate or I won't give them their marriage certificate. But we started doing that because a lot of people weren't married, wanted to come on the show. They didn't want divorce. They wanted help. So we started the segment Before Your Vows because we like what she says. We want to hear what she thinks about this. So we started that, and that's why we were doing that.
So actually, can we go a little deeper on that? So you said you gave them a compatibility test. What were give me like 3 questions. What were the questions on that?
What are the 5 things wrong with you? What are the name 5 things that are wrong with you? Name 5 things are wrong with your spouse or your intended spouse. I would ask who's head of the household, who does chores. I'd ask them, just kind of random questions that would tell me a little bit. If you could change one thing about your intended, what would it be? What's that last secret you haven't told? And they'll be honest with me. And, so.
Is there any of the crazy things that you heard where you're like, oh God, no, you should never marry this person?
This one woman, beautiful too. And her whole, when I asked 5 things you don't like about herself and 5 things you like, she listed like 10 for both. And then everything she said in there was she was just unhappy. You're unhappy. I think you may be depressed. You're unhappy with him. You're yelling at him, but you can't leave him because you don't know where to go because you have no idea what's making you unhappy. You need to see a psychologist, not a minister.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of people think that marriage is going to make them happy.
Mm-hmm. Or don't understand why he's not making her happy. Anything he was doing wasn't going to make her happy. And he was kind of figuring it out. And he was like, well, I don't want to stay with a sourpuss for the rest of my life. So.
That's amazing. Okay, so they've done this assessment. I'm sorry, what was the next step that you do after that?
And then we talk about the troubles that they're having and why. And then I make them give them a 90-second profession of love with nothing negative in it.
Does anyone ever find that too hard to do?
Almost everyone.
Really?
I used to start with the men, and then Bill, my bailiff, said, that's not fair. You should start with the women because women talk about love and stuff.
Yeah.
Women. So we start with the women, but most people, I love him. He's nice, but when he's drinking, I would love for him to, but they start complaining right away. And you got a D- on that. You didn't say one nice thing about him.
I love how it starts off positive, but then turns into the negative.
Immediately negative.
Yeah. Okay, so you do that for 90 seconds. Once they've done that, what's the next step?
Then I tell them what I think's up, what I think everybody's problem is, and either I hand them a marriage certificate or I tear it up.
Yeah. I think so many more people should get counseling before they get married because to see, like, compatibility is everything. And look, at the end of the day, if you plan to be with someone for the rest of your life, of course you're going to evolve and change. But for me and my husband, we've been married for 23 years. And I think about how, like, I'm not the same person that I was, but my values and morals are still the same.
But everything changes, your circumstances change, and changing of circumstances changes everything. And before my husband and I got married, we did 6 months of marriage counseling.
Wow.
And every problem he said we were going to have, we had. He said we're going to have trouble with this, so let's.
Do you mind listing a couple of those problems that they predicted that you would have?
They said we were very incompatible about our approaches to money, and we were. And another one was I was very much a loner. And I was going to have a difficult because he had 4 kids. I was going to have trouble in the house for a while with all of those people. And that happened, just stuff that he knew we were going to run into,
And how did the predicting of that help you guys overcome it?
I had a separate room in the house. That wasn't a bedroom. It was just a private room for me with a bed in it, where I could go and be by myself. So we could do that. And that was and the longer we married, the less I needed it because I was now incorporated into the family. But that was my peace room. That's where I would build my doll houses.
Yeah. I think sometimes though, it's the like, if you're not surprised by something, and so it's having that room as the practical thing of how you're going to overcome it is such a beautiful way to then explain how you then overcame it. And I'm currently going through perimenopause. And so my husband met me when I was 21. So I'm a very different human. I'm going through different emotions. And so I had him read a menopause book. Because I was like, you need to know what's about to happen to me. I need to know what's about to happen to me so that we can navigate it together. So being aware of it, I think, is that super important foundation that I think more of us need to know the difficulties of a relationship instead of kind of going into it thinking it's going to be roses and butterflies because of what we've heard love should look like.
Right, yeah. And it's so funny, that story. I went through menopause really early. I had my first flash at 39. So we didn't think it was that. I just got me. I mean, my testosterone, estrogen levels, they were just, I remember one day that my husband picked the kids up and said, we're all leaving. I don't know what's wrong with you. We're all leaving. And they left me home and I was glad. And then I started calling my mother. And my mother says, yeah, we all go through menopause in our early 40s. So that's what's wrong with you. Then everything was fine.
Yeah, knowing was...
I knew what was wrong because I called my mom. She said, yeah, we go through it early. So that's what's happening to you.
It's almost coming full circle as well, right? So that woman at the beginning that you were saying about how she brought in that, big binder of all the things and all the proof. And she said, at least I'm not going crazy. It's kind of the same thing where it's like, oh, it's menopause. All right, then I'm fine.
It's not, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Is there one thing that you have seen consistently where couples just cannot recover from?
The toughest thing I've seen couples have to recover from is the loss of a child. And especially miscarriages. And I don't know this statistically, but I do know anecdotally, a lot of women would come into court and say he was so inattentive when I was going through all this. And he would say, yeah, I was trying to say, hey, come on, let's get back up on the horse. It's on fire. He was trying to encourage her. I said, I would love men to know a little bit more about the female body, for a couple of reasons. And one of them is when you lose a baby, your hormones are all tap dancing all over your rationality. They're going up, they're going down because it's huge. And so it's like me shooting you up with heroin and telling you, and don't get high. Buck up, don't get high, because hormones are real and they're strong and they're drugs. And you have to understand, you fell off the horse ran over her, and you need to help her. Because they didn't understand what that was. You know what I mean? They really just didn't understand what it means to have a miscarriage. I mean, in addition to the emotional loss, there is physiological stuff that is just off the charts.
I actually love that you also said that there's so much we need to understand about women's body, and I think that that's the same for men. This is why I always like to really understand men. I do a lot of interviews on how do men think, because understanding the other half will help you have more compassion, I think, instead of the judgment. Because I've got to be honest, I used to absolutely judge my husband when he would do things that I deemed crazy. I'm like, what the hell? But once I understand how his brain functions, how testosterone impacts his decision-making and things like that, I no longer take things personally. I kind of go, oh, that's my husband's brain, and then act in accordance.
We were in a parking lot, and my mother was in the back seat, and he was driving, and I kept saying, there's a parking space. There's a parking space. And he kept driving, there's a parking space. And then my mother went like this. Men do that. And so I just shut up. No judgment. Men do that. They want to find the best parking space. Men do that in a very unjudgmental way. It's like saying, men do that.
Well, your mum definitely was, as you said, an emotional genius. What else did she teach you about men?
Not a lot. She didn't really talk about men so much as just circumstance, emotion, and people. Like the bathroom mirror mandate. Never leave your house unless you know what mood you're in. I mean, name it. Say what it is because you're going out there in the world. Don't do that. Don't let your emotions straddle events. Remember, if you were upset here, you've got to put a period on it here before you go there. I mean, if you want to win an argument, don't just say my position, my position, my position. You start where other people are and slowly walk them home. I'll find something you agree with on something, just a little something. And I said, hey, I agree with that. But here's how. And then you walk them home. I mean, she had something for everything. Feelings are fleeting, felonies are forever. Just be cool.
What do you think has changed in society over the last 14 years where it seems like there's more bifurcation between the male and the female when it comes to, you've got the Andrew Tate movement, you've got the trad wife movement, you've got the feminists. So it seems like we're becoming more polarizing instead of coming more together.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. One's an economic thing. It makes money. You know, beef makes green. You go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Everybody's following the viewer, the trad wife, all of that. So angst makes money. People rage bait, all of that. And so going back and forth with people are making money. So people are doing that and they're getting more and more outrageous and separate because you want to be louder and be more heard. That's part of the problem. I think the browning of America and the diversity of it has caused it to quiver. And everybody's taking sides and silos. We got into a big individuality thing. This is my truth. This is my this is my. And now we can't agree on any truths because we all have the right to say this is what the truth is. And so we've monetized the anger. I don't know. That's my 10-cent opinion on that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been married, like I said, for 23 years, knowing that you've been married for, you were married for over 34 years. What do you think those maybe a couple of key things were where you and your husband were able to consistently keep on the same path?
There were twice in the marriage that he did it and 3 times that I did it. Went up to him and said, I don't like the way things are going. Can we talk about it? And he said one time when we were having trouble, he says, can we stop and just make sure we can get this marriage on track? He says, I feel like it's off track. And I said, it is a little off track. He says, well, you want to go see Willie? Willie was our marriage counselor. I said, yeah, let's go see Willie. He fixed it. I mean, it was just, we really wanted to be married. And we really wanted to be married to one another. And we also we were adults about it. We weren't expecting to have fun all the time. We were expecting to have a good, solid, loving marriage with good kids in it. But that has to be worked on. And we're both very monogamous people.
I love also the ability to wave the flag and the other person receive it, because I think sometimes when you go up to your partner and you're like, hey, look, things are going like, what do you mean? And they get very defensive versus doing what you said. It's like, you want to go see Willie?
It's because how you do it. I put my hand on his hand whenever I want to say something he ain't going to like. I said, babe, I know you're not going to like this, but, and we prep each other for it because I care about him. And when I'm scared, he stops everything and just sits me on his lap, knows what I need to hear. You know what I mean? We loved each other and we wanted it so badly. We wanted it so badly.
I love that. For me and my husband, I had to use the word damage to get his attention. So I had to say, like, I love you, baby, but this is now damaging our relationship. And by saying damage, it kind of was a big red flag for him to then stop and pay attention.
Right. And that's the thing. That's your second set of eyes. That's your reading your dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
That's your reading your dude. So
that's so true. Obviously, tell me if it's too delicate. How are you doing now after 34 years with your husband and not being with him? In all honesty, it's like, for me, it's the thing I couldn't imagine.
I didn't think I was going to make it the first 6 months. I really didn't. He died unexpectedly. I was on the treadmill. He walked out. I'll be back. Yep. And then phone call. You ain't going to see him no more. And it was just panic. Just waves and waves of panic. Like, he's supposed to be here. And my big fears were always handled by him. And now he's not here. Who holds me? Who tells me it's okay? It was a long, tough process. And I'm almost on the other side. I'll never get totally on the other side. You know, he died 2022. I don't date, not thinking about dating. I'm still in love with him. He's still my husband. And that's the way it's going to be.
Thank you for that. When I think about everything we've spoken about today, and when I think about divorce, and the goal is when you get married to live happily ever after, and it's never always going to be happy. You're going to have the ups, the downs, the bumps. But my goal for me is to live with my husband for the rest of my life, which is going to mean either I lose him or he loses me first. And I just
having a successful marriage, the prize sucks. I mean, death do us part. That's what we were aiming for, but the prize just sucked.
Yeah. But you're an incredible spirit and incredible strength for so many. I mean, the fact that you've dedicated your life to doing what you do, and then obviously sharing your personal side as well and your personal journey, is helping so many women. And so on behalf of myself and just my entire female community, I want to say thank you. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for all the work you do.
Oh, thank you for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. I really did.
Me too. I was desperate to meet you in person, but I was even more desperate to do this interview, so we settled on Zoom.
I don't hardly leave the house anymore, but I appreciate you doing it this way.
Oh my God. Anything. Honestly, I so admire you. I so admire what you stand for. Again, as a woman, I look to who's strong in their conviction, but has beautiful passion, empathy, wants people to do well, wants couples to live a long, happy life, and you embody all of that. So if someone wants to follow you or continue on this journey and go down the rabbit hole that is Judge Lynn, where can they go?
You can go on YouTube. It's Real Judge Lynn. It's the one with 100,000 followers. There's a lot of fake Judge Lynn's on there. Judge.
Yeah.
Real Judge Lynn, little I on Instagram, and my books are all on Amazon.
Hell yeah. Guys, today has been such a blessing for me. Going into this woman's world, seeing what she stands for, seeing her confidence, I hope and urge all of us women to be able to have that, type of confidence where we can look at someone with compassion, to want our partner to do well, but absolutely make sure that we have our own confidence and we can stand up for ourselves when needed. So guys, please do go follow her. If you're not following me, smash that subscribe button down there. And until next time, be the hero of your own life. Peace. It's never too late to change your life at any age. And if you want to know how, then you're going to want to watch this video right here with the legend Tamron Hall. So many of us women feel the pressure to get married, have kids, have the career before it's, let's say, too late. But Tamron, you didn't.